Okay, so we're gonna get started now. If that's all right with you guys, you could unmute now.
Hi,
All
Hi
right.
everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Elgin High School's 2024 final day of the NBTI. Today we have two presenters. We have Deborah Gayon, who's Environmental Education Manager at the Bartlett Nature Center, a facility at the Bartlett Park District. And with her, we have Mike Diamond, who's the Nature Coordinator at the center.
All right, so you guys could take it away whenever you're ready.
Great. Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here, first of all. We are here to talk to you about exotic companions. And what we mean by that is before you go out to the pet store and get lured in by all the very, very cool things that are at a pet store, we just want you to keep some things in mind because we just know some things. So we figure why not share? So to start off, just want to share a quick little story with you that is just something that sticks in my mind. And it's brought to us by a 2-year-old little girl. So these are a pair of Keen's shoes. And I'm hopeful that a lot of you have seen these in your lifetime. They're really good to hike with. My daughter was adamant about having these shoes because her older sister had these shoes. So off to Nordstrom we went when she was 2 years old because she had to have blue shoes. Now, for all intents and purposes, these are blue shoes. So I was a young mom many years ago, and we're in the store. I pick up the blue shoes, put them in the cart. Temper tantrum. Immediately. Not too bad, but enough. 20 minutes this took me to understand what was going on in somebody else's mind, a 2-year-old mind of all things. So she looks at them, I put them back on the shelf. Blue shoes, blue shoes. She keeps telling me, I want blue shoes, just like her sister. So I point to the blue shoes, put them back in the cart. Nope, not having it. So she's tugging at my sweater the whole time. She's in the shopping cart. And I'm not paying attention to that because I'm just a mom. I'm on a schedule. I want blue shoes. Let's go. We got things to do. Gotta go to the grocery store. You know, we have our task list. Not for a 2-year-old and not for someone so short and tiny, right? So finally, she keeps pulling at my sweater and she's like, down, mama, down. So I got down because she kept saying yellow shoes. And I said, you want yellow shoes? No, I want blue shoes. And we're going back and forth in this store. And I'm just saying to myself, patience, Debbie, patience. Patience, Debbie, patience. Because I didn't know what this girl was talking about. But if anybody knows anything about Keen's shoes, you will know that the bottoms look like this. So to a 2-year-old in a shopping cart that's sitting down here looking this way, these are yellow shoes. To adults looking this way, these are blue shoes. Just keep something like that in mind. Perspective is just such an important thing to have and to take a few steps back. And so Mike and I are fairly new to the Bartlett Nature Center. We're not new to teaching, and we're not new to teaching about natural science or to students, but we were new to some of the critters that are here. And the critters that are here came to us because a lot of them are discarded pets. And so the reason we wanted to talk to you about that today, and there'll be a culminating message here at the end, is they're really cool animals. Super, super cool. But if you're going to get one or go into a pet store, the pet store's job is to sell you pets. That's their main job. You walk out with a pet, they've done their job. Now your job is to realize that a lot of these pets will outlive you, or when you go to college, your parents will be stuck with them and they won't know what to do with them. So we've brought a bunch of animals here today to show you, to see what we're talking about and to give you a little taste of what the Bartlett Nature Center is all about and how great it is, how cool these animals are. So every once in a while, Mike and I are going to duck a little bit because we have to grab things and we need our hands. In fact, I'm looking for mine and I think she's here. Okay, so our first one, you go in, I'm going to move the shoes. You go into the pet store and they say, and they have these really cool habitats because that's their job. They make habitats all day long in the pet store. And so, of course you want a gecko, right? Of course you do. because they're the coolest things ever. Can I give you that? Thanks. So this little lady, can you see her? There you go. We could do that. So this little lady is Harley, and she was a pet. I will tell you, she is as soft as like the softest blanket in your house. She makes you want to cuddle. Not that we're going to do that. But now she's here. She's not native to Illinois. She's absolutely something you would see in the tropics. But she needs somebody to take care of her and somebody to love her. So that's what we are here to do. And by love her, I mean just care for her, feed her, make sure that she's healthy, and to educate people about her. She has super soft feet that are trying to climb up me, that are rounded, right? You can probably see that. They're native to a place called New Caledonia. And in 1994, they thought this little gem was extinct. And then they found another one. Now, very akin to her, we have another little lizard named Margot. And Margot was found abandoned in an apartment building. I'm going to let Mike tell you about her.
Yeah, so this is Margot. She was actually found in my sister-in-law's apartment building, who could have been somebody's pet at one point, and then either got out or was left when they were moving. But she was very skinny, living off probably the cockroaches in the walls of my sister-in-law's apartment. But as you can see, these are two different types of geckos, and they've got some similarities, but they also have a bunch of differences. So as you can tell, with the geckos, they've got their toes. They've got 5 toes on their feet. I don't know if you can tell. Not going to be cooperative, but they've got 5 toes on their front feet and their back feet, just like all lizards and geckos do. And they're able to use those in order to be able to climb and things like that. One of the differences, however, is that Harley's feet are made to climb. So she's a climbing type of lizard. Margot is right here is a ground dwelling lizard. So she's on the ground 24/7. She doesn't really climb all that much. She'll climb a little bit over like small logs and obstacles, but they are very different in that aspect, as well as the fact that you'll notice that Margot, I don't know if she'll close her eyes, but she has eyelids like all of us do. And Harley, on the other hand, does not. So in order for Harley to sleep, she can actually expand and contract her pupils, which is the black part of her eye. And she's able to do that in order to sleep. But also, whenever we close our eyelids, our eyes do a good job of cleaning themselves with the tears in our tear ducts. Since she doesn't have any eyelids, she can lick her eyeballs in order to clean them off, which is kind of a cute, funny little thing that she does, but it's a way for her to be able to live and survive. That is different from Margot here.
Now we know that you're all right now trying to see how far your tongue will stretch. It won't stretch that far, we don't think, but we know you're all doing it. Even though we can't see you, we know you're all attempting something. And that's the fun part of science. So that's really the basis of the job of Mike and I, is to take all of this science and teach people about it and how cool it is. So the cool part about Harley for me is that she has these little hairs on her toe pads called setae. Nice scientific word for you. And then individually, there's thousands more of hairs on her pads called spatulae. And spatulae may sound just like a spatula that you would use in the kitchen. So her toe pads are nice and fat and give her that grip, much like if you were, stirring icing, something like that with a spatula, scrambled eggs, things like that. So you need that surface area. So for all of our real science nerds out there, and by nerds, I mean that's so complimentary. So these structures, the setae and the spatulae, are what employ the van der Waals force to facilitate these geckos' climbing abilities. So those two things need to work together to make that happen. Otherwise, she would not be able to let that happen. So these two little guys were pets. And long before Mike and I arrived at the Nature Center, they were given to the Nature Center. And that's what we're going to use them for. We're just going to use them to educate others.
One last cool thing that I want to point out about the leopard gecko versus the crested gecko is the leopard gecko here has a big fat tail. And the leopard geckos are able to drop their tail as well as the crested geckos if they sense danger or a predator is trying to chase them in order to lure the predator away from themselves and to eat the tail. Margot here can actually grow her tail back up to a couple of times. However, Harley, once she drops it, the tail's gone for good. So that's just a couple of another differences in how they are able to adapt and survive and live their life.
Okay, so quick little goodbye from our lizard friends, Harley and Margot. All right, now on to what I call the big guns. We have a lot of reptiles at the Nature Center. Native, non-native, and a lot of people don't like snakes. And snakes have such a great story to tell. You just have to get people over to the aquarium tank to talk about them. So we are going to show you Fred. We're going to give each one of these animals has a name here at the Nature Center. So we're going to tell you that. Fred is our corn snake. Mike is going to grab Fred for us. We have them all hidden under a black drape, just so that you know that, to keep them kind of calm and ready for this big performance. Otherwise, you know, we don't want to stress them out too much. Corn snakes are pretty cool creatures in that they were named for the pattern on their scales, in that it looks like corn. So this orange, beautiful male snake, so we gave you a black backdrop here so you could see him better, is Fred. And if you want to tell him a little bit more about Fred, you may go right ahead.
Sure. So here's Fred. And like you can tell by the corn, they call them corn snakes because on the bottom of their body, they look kind of like an ear of corn, little corn kernels, which is kind of where they get that name from. But as you can tell, Fred is a corn snake, and he's very long. He's probably around 5.5 to 6 feet long. He's one of our longest snakes that we have at the Nature Center. And as you can tell right now by his tongue, he uses his tongue in order to taste the air. So snakes don't smell all that well, but they can use their taste sensors on the tip of their tongue in order to taste the air and kind of taste the area around them in order to smell and see what's around them. And as you can tell here on the left side, it looks kind of like bedding, but that's actually stuck shed. So one of the things with owning snakes that you have to kind of take into account is that sometimes snakes will have a tough time shedding. So they might need some help with either a bath of water or things like that in order to help them to shed their skin. They usually do shed their skin all in one piece. Just kind of depends on the amount of humidity in their tank and in their area. Corn snakes are cold-blooded. So unlike us who are warm-blooded, they are not able to regulate their own body temperature. And so they need heat lamps, or out in the wild, they would use the sun or heat from the rocks in the ground in order to stay warm and be able to live. So that is one big difference they have from us. They are invertebrates they are vertebrates like we are. So that means they have a backbone. And snakes have a backbone that literally goes along their entire body all the way down. And then they've got a bunch of ribs. So it's basically backbone and ribs and muscle that goes all around the snake. Anything to add?
I don't. I think corn snakes aren't seen enough in the wild because you wouldn't look for them particularly, but they are seen a lot in pet stores. So they like to breed albino corn snakes. We do have one of those too, but not here today, that are just plain white. So they are a very, very sought after species in the pet store marketplace. So that would be one that you could see in a pet store where you say, oh, time for me to get a snake. Now, the very important thing is here, and some of you might be scratching your heads or writing down a question for later, what do they eat? We have a freezer full of things that they eat. So you might have noticed we're going from small animals and we're getting a little bit bigger. So Fred's gonna eat mice. They eat frozen mice, and then we thaw them out. So anything from small to medium, they get bigger as they get bigger. And we'll show you something like that at the end. Okay. I'll let Mike take that one away so I can bring this one in. This is my favorite snake because I am deathly afraid of snakes. Now, would you ever believe that in a million years? My older brother used to watch a show. I don't even know what it's called. If he watches this YouTube video, he's going to tell me and remind me, where it was a human turning into a snake because they were injecting him with venom. It was totally fake. But I was little and it scared the pants off of me. And one of my mentor naturalists in 1993 taught me how to do this with a fox snake. So fox snakes are my favorite native snake. They're native to Illinois. This is Mickey. This snake got that name because the pattern on Mickey, it's gonna be hard to see on a computer screen, looks like little Mickey Mouse ears, like the kind you would wear at the park. So it's a little bit tricky to see.
Got to set right here. Show that.
Yeah, you see, oh, right there, perfect. Did you guys see that? Super great snake, really active, really acclimated, really the showcase of the snakes in Debbie's opinion. And I think it's because he knows it's Illinois. He knows he's supposed to be here. He's comfortable with the temperature. He is what they call a North American colubrid in the temperate zone, if we're talking in scientific terms. It's just a type of snake, and the temperate zone is where we live. So he is very comfortable. Some of the snakes that we have are from the tropics, and then they just kind of sit because they need 90 degrees and a ton of humidity. He does this. If we were to give him human emotion, he likes to play, and he's not really playing. He's just being a snake, but he likes to move, and he likes to just be out and about. He just likes to be a snake. And I think it's all because he's from this area. He understands the temperature and, in your terms, the vibe, if you will. And this is Mickey. Snakes usually don't eat anything larger than their head. So if you're thinking, what kind of mice, do you give these guys? I mean, you could see his head. It's pretty tiny. So he will look for things, not here, we have to give him things, but in the wild, he would look for things that match his head. One of my favorite things about Mickey is he's named a fox snake because they emit an odor like a fox, and a fox emits an odor much like a skunk. So they have that musky smell. So if he were in danger right now or felt threatened, he would start smelling pretty poorly. And he's not, which is great news. But that's why he's called a fox snake. So if he's threatened in the wild, they'll put off that scent as one of their sort of threatening behaviors. The other thing, though, that is absolutely my favorite is this little tail right here will go up and rattle, not like a million times faster than this, like a rattlesnake. So that's one of their mimicry talents, is that they can rattle their tail like a rattlesnake, and it wards off predators. And I just think that's the coolest thing, that they are able to do that. Super talented for one of our natives. You will find this in the prairie here at James Phillips State Park. That's where the Nature Center is located. And nothing to be afraid of.
So we have a few questions in the chat, and this is in regards to the geckos that you were showing earlier.
Sure.
So we had, you said that one of the geckos is native to the tropics, and somebody asked, how well does it fare in Illinois? And it also says, are there any geckos that are native to Illinois?
It's a good question.
That's a great question.
I will tell you that the geckos that we have that are not native to Illinois and they're in the tropics, we have to keep the humidity up in their tank. Harley's tank needs to be about 82% humidity. So that includes misting and putting different types of substrates in there that hold the water and hold that humidity for them in order to be able to live. Margot is more of a dryer. She doesn't need humidity. She's from kind of like Iran, Iraq, that kind of area of the Middle East, which is very, it's not very humid. It's very dry. So they don't really need that type of humidity, but they do need that heat still.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully that helps. And it can be difficult to keep that humidity at 80%. So we'll mist her tank often, and she's in bark chips on the bottom that should be really soaked readily. And every morning we come in, she's at 30 to 40%. So it's a commitment to keep her hydrated, if you will, but they need to be really wet. If you think about going to like Brookfield Zoo and going into a snake house or Tropic World and how wet you feel, that's how wet they need to feel. So it's like being in South Florida, they need that all the time. So it is a lot of different care.
Thank you so much. And another one of the question was, what are the financial costs that are associated with owning exotic animals like the geckos?
Perfect. Okay, so I was going to get to that at the end. So each one of these animals is different, and it is financially, you have to be prepared, but also time-wise, you need to be prepared. And a lot of people say time is money, so they can kind of go together, right? So Harley really should eat every day. She needs insects and a certain type of food that she would find in the tropics. So it has to be hydrated. And then she has to be misted usually twice a day. So it's not an animal like a cat or a dog where you can just sort of like have a litter box, put out food, and they do their thing on their own, right? They need constant attention. And that's a lot of times with exotics, things that people don't understand. So we're always monitoring her hygrometer. That's the humidity. If you come into the nature center, you'll notice these little buttons that look like thermometers, but they're called hygrometers. And they measure the humidity for each of our more tropical species. So we have to really be on top of what that looks like. So we actually are, it's not down to a science, but almost, where Harley has this tank, she uses this much Reptibark, she has this many enrichment tools in her tank, she uses this many insects. So we have it kind of down to a science of what each species costs us, because we need to do that. We're a governmental agency and we owe that to the taxpayers. So we want to be responsible, fiscally responsible. So we do that. But you have to think, okay, if I need 30 crickets, that's going to cost me $5, but I might need 30 crickets every 2 days. So you have to go buy 30 crickets every 2 days. And if you say, oh, I'm just going to get them shipped in, that's no problem. Overnight delivery for crickets is $30. So if you keep doing overnight delivery, it gets expensive. So you wouldn't think like this little cute gecko is anything, but it's that they're insectivores. So they need that. You need to be able to produce that.
And with the crickets as well, you're like, oh, well, maybe I'll just buy 600 crickets and it'll last me a long time. Well, crickets, unlike any other animal, die. And you'd say probably about half, maybe a little bit less, will die before you even use them. So it's not like you could even get 1,000 crickets and be good for months. You have to buy them basically weekly or monthly, depending on how many animals you have. So it just is another cost as well.
Right. And you don't really, some people do, we don't. It's an art to keep crickets alive. So that's a whole nother section of like, what are you going to feed the crickets? Then you have to water the crickets. Then you have to change the crickets. I mean, everything eats and poops. So we all have to remember that. Everything does that. And so you have to clean that up. They can't just be dirty. So we owe it to the animals to keep everything clean. And so you have to factor that all into ownership. Before Mike shows you this next thing, speaking of food, because we've talked about mice. So this was my biggest realization here, because I've only ever worked with native animals before. And then I came to the nature center, and this next one he's going to show you is quite the big critter, let's say. So this is just one of what she eats. So every 2 weeks, this next snake that you're going to see eats, pardon the noise, these two things. So I know, so to your money question, I know that I need 96 of these annually for this snake and for some of the bigger snakes. So I have it all figured out. I need 144 hoppers, which are a certain size of mice. I need pinky mice, which are the baby mice, hopper mice, adult mice, small rats, medium rats. These are medium rats. So I have that all figured out already. Your parents would not like to keep these in their freezer. I'm just letting you know that. You would need a whole separate animal freezer for animal food to stay, I'm sure they don't want these rats in their freezer. So I'm going to remove these because that snake that he's holding is going to want me. So let me get rid of these so he can show you her.
So you may see me fumbling around. This snake is one of our bigger snakes and is a lot heavier. I'm trying to use my arm muscles that I'm kind of sore with. But this is Phoenix, and Phoenix is a Peruvian rainbow boa. And you may not be able to tell it right now in this light because she looks like she's about probably a week or two out from being shedding. So she's not as vibrant, but she'll have this kind of iridescent glow to her with the light bouncing off of her.
Can we do any of that?
I don't know. But she has this kind of an iridescent glow, which makes her very beautiful, but also makes her, more people want her because they look so pretty. And a lot of people in the snake game like snakes that look cool. So with her, she's a very big snake. You can tell that she's wrapped around my hand pretty tightly. All the snakes that we've shown today are all constrictors. So there's kind of two separate thoughts to it. There's constrictors, which when they grab their food with their mouth, squeeze it till it dies, and they swallow it whole. And then there are snakes that are venomous. And venom, which is different from poison. Venom has to be injected into whatever it's given. Poison can be touched or put into your mouth. So think of like a poison arrow, dart frog. You would have to touch those in order to get the poison onto you. Snakes, however, are venomous because they inject it with their teeth. Their teeth are hollow, and they inject the venom to kill whatever their prey is, and then they swallow it and eat it. But you'll notice that she is very, very big, very thick. And she's got a bigger head, which causes her to have to eat bigger animals. So that's why she's got those 2 rats that she eats. And again, with vet care, I talked about this with the stuck shed that was on Fred's head. If I can get her to move the way I want her to, she has got some pretty gnarly stuck shed on the top tip of her face.
Right there.
And it's kind of constricting her being able to see. So I'm kind of careful with her right now just because she doesn't see all that well. So you got to make sure that you're not surprising her with anything. But she had to take a visit to the vet. And you can't just go to any vet. Not every vet takes snakes like this or exotic animals. So you have to go to a vet with exotic animals, which can be costly depending on the type of snake, the issue that it has. You may need to give the snake shots, which we have to give injections every 3 days for probably about a month. And so she, needed a lot more care than you would normally do for any type of other animal. And it's a little bit different of care. It's not just like, giving them peanut butter with a pill in it. They can't swallow a pill. So you have to give them injections and shots. And if you're afraid of needles, that's another thing, that could be an issue coming up with this.
Right. So when I first arrived here, Phoenix was breathing really hard and laboriously, wheezing. And I'm sure you guys have experienced this. If you've ever had a cold or a sinus infection, or especially during the pandemic, terrible, right? But she was terrible. You could hold her up and she was just, it was bad. And so we finally found an exotic vet that took a look at her, and she let us know that she had a bacterial respiratory infection, and she probably had it for about the last 18 months. And so she was able to give us these shots that Mike is referring to, and we had to go under her scales into a meaty part of her, which you wouldn't believe, but like this is a bony part. It's her backbone, her vertebrae, just like you have. And then her meaty part, her muscly part, you can feel. So we had to go under her scales and give her a shot. And boy, does she react just like any of us would. She tenses up and wants to wiggle out of your hands. So it's a bit of an art. But for a month, she had to have shots, and now you can't hear her because if we're really quiet, you don't hear anything. And you're not really supposed to hear snakes hiss, but this one, you could hear all of that breathing and mucus and snot that was in her. So right now she's doing very well and much healthier. So she needs bigger rats and care. So we definitely had to find that exotic pet vet, which is great. There's my plug for Lake Street Veterinary Clinic and Dr. Grazita, because she has been phenomenal to work with. And she helps us out tremendously. So
As you can tell too, you can kind of see my hand. She is very strong. So I got a little bit of constriction of my blood flow in my hand. It's fine. It's not that bad, but she is a lot stronger of a snake as well. So you just want to make sure that you're careful because these snakes could do harm if they really wanted to, which is why we never wear snakes. We don't put them around our necks like you see in all those, MTV or music videos. We always want to keep snakes in a place that's going to be away from your face because these are all wild animals at the end of the day. If they wanted to bite, they could bite. So you just got to be very careful.
So that is Phoenix. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in. They'll just let us know. Okay, this next one is my absolute least favorite thing that we own at the Nature Center, but I try. Even those of us that work in nature sometimes have our least favorites. So I'm gonna let Mike talk to you about this one. It's in this jar. And then we have a few more that we can show you. So it's gonna be like my least favorite followed by one of my favorites. So we have a tank full of Madagascar hissing cockroaches. That's about all I can say about that. You'll see those at the Brookfield Zoo, at the Lincoln Park Zoo, at a lot of different nature centers. They're great feeder insects for when we don't have or need crickets. You can use the little ones for feeder insects for your lizards. That is one way to go. That is not one way I would go with your families. They would, as a mom, I would not appreciate this. So I would not do this, but he'll show you, should be able to hear this guy hiss. Now watch, it won't happen.
Okay, so a few more questions we have are, when you get a new animal at the nature center, how do you know how to take care of it?
A lot of research, a lot of patience, and a lot of teamwork. So that's the one thing that Mike and I pride ourselves on, is patience and teamwork. And we're going to do everything we can to make the Bartlett Park District proud. One thing to know is that the Nature Center sits on 501 acres of prairie. And prairies are important. Prairies are what Illinois is made from, and they don't exist all over the place anymore. So this place is a partnership between the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County, and the Bartlett Park District. That's a lot of entities and organizations to work together, and stellar organizations that are full of resources. So if there's something that we don't know, we can absolutely reach out to our partners or reach out to our experts and get some help. There's also a lot of different experts at different park districts and different nature centers. So over the years, and I've made a lot of different colleagues and friends that we can reach out to and say, hey, do you have a this? Do you have a that? Do you have a that? Do you want a this? Do you want a that? So we can talk to them and share diet cards and share protocols and things like that. So we can work together on what we do.
Great, thank you so much. And then another question we have is, do you have any kind of endangered animals at the Bartlett Nature Center?
Absolutely. We're keeping that for last. Yep, my favorite.
Okay, sounds good. And
first, your cockroach.
The last question we have is, what kinds of animals do you guys have for public view at the Bartlett Nature Center?
All of these are for public view. So right now we do have a few that are in what we call the back. So if some need extra care, if they're being like medicated, things like that, we are keeping them in the back. Right now, a lot of them are on exhibit. If they need to be off exhibit, we just have them back in our office and people can always ask. Right now we have a hog-nosed snake that's off exhibit. Phoenix right now is off exhibit while she figures out this shed that's going on in her eyes, and the veterinarian knows about it. Our mealworms like that we feed them are not on exhibit. Right now the cockroaches are not on exhibit, but people ask about them, so we bring them out. But everything else is out, so you can see them.
Perfect. So I'll bring this up closer because it's kind of hard to see. But this is a Madagascar hissing cockroach. This is kind of a medium-sized one. They can get pretty much the size of the length of your thumb, depending on how old they are, how long they've been living. So they are invertebrates, so they don't have a vertebrae. They've got an exoskeleton like most insects do. So their skeleton is on the outside of their body. And then you can actually tell whether they're male or female a couple of ways. So on the top of their head, let me see if I can get into view here. See those like little humps on the top of their head? So males will have kind of like protruding horns that just kind of like lumps. So this is a male. And then if I can get close enough with the antenna, you can kind of tell maybe. The antenna is very like furry and fuzzy looking, which is another sign that this is also a male. It's climbing up my arm. But I'm gonna see if I can get them to hiss. Sometimes they'll do it, sometimes they won't. It just kind of depends on how annoyed they are. Because their hissing is their way of saying, get away from me, stay away from me. I don't like what you're doing. So we won't make them hiss all that much, but let's see if I can get it to hiss. No. So like I said, he's just kind of checking out the area. You can see his antenna's going crazy, and he's got his little kind of like mandibles, if you can tell, down at the bottom of his hand, or his head on my hand. Just kind of like trying to figure out the area, figure out what he's currently standing on or walking on. But they are kind of cool. They are very weird feeling, as any insect, can be if they're crawling up your arm. But they can crawl basically up any surface. So with our Madagascar hissing cockroaches, you actually have to put like a layer of Vaseline around the edge of the tank so that they can't escape. Otherwise, you'll have cockroaches all over your house. These guys breed very, very much. Every, I think, month, they can have up to 60 babies. And the way they do it is they have eggs that come out, and then the eggs hatch inside their body, and they're able to actually come out and have that many. So with us, we have so many cockroaches in the back that we're actually have kind of a feeder colony that we feed some of our bigger reptiles with that eat insects.
And these cockroaches are really no different than just cockroaches. So that's why they proliferate so frequently. So even though they're Madagascar hissing cockroaches, and yes, you'll see them at the zoos and aquariums and things like that, they reproduce fast. So this is not a critter I would bring into your house and start feeding anything without letting your parents know, because it's still a cockroach. And if they get out, you're still going to have cockroaches. So you really don't want to do that without any sort of permissions. That's a big one. And I'm telling you this from my biologist, scientific self, and my mom self. So that's not one I would do. However,
and they also do not have wings like other roaches. So these guys don't fly. They're just kind of ground dwelling.
if you had one of these, this is Pancake. If you had one of these, Pancake loves those. So we have some little ones here. Ooh. And we thought you might be a little entertained watching Pancake have a little snack. So just like when your dog comes in, maybe after going to the bathroom or rolling over doing a trick, and you give your dog a treat, this guy loves treats. Pancake is a central bearded dragon. We have two of these at the Nature Center. Pancake is one, Cleo is the other. Cleo, in my opinion only, gets a bad rap. A little aggressive in play, really likes to play a lot. And then there's Pancake. So if we had Pancake here and Mike put a cockroach down, hopefully you're going to see a magic trick right before your eyes, but we got to be able to scoop her up pretty quickly.
So as you can tell with her tongue, she uses that tongue to kind of grab onto things. So with the cockroach, she's like kind of almost like a chameleon, kind of grabs it and brings it into her mouth. You can hear it crunching away right now. It's kind of
Hopefully you can hear that.
Yeah, we'll do another one so you can hear it if we can get up close.
Ooh, that was like a slow motion tongue view. Pancake is probably thinking this is way too easy, because usually we make work out of this a little bit harder, but right now Pancake doesn't realize the video camera's on. Oh, and that's a fast moving guy. So this is Pancake. Called a bearded dragon because all along, sorry, I don't want to take away the show there. There you go. All along here, there's these spiky, yeah, I know you don't like when I touch that. Spiky
Beard.
Yeah, beard is what it's called. That they can kind of puff out. So if you think Jurassic Park in really small version, and that's going to puff out when they're threatened, that's where they get their name. Boy, do I not like these cockroaches. Oh, under the belly, under the belly. So Pancake is a really great performer, really loves to do animal encounters with kids and with students, and really not normally an animal that a lot of people have, but two people had them because two people didn't want them anymore, and that's how we got them. So great to have, definitely not native to Illinois at all. Definitely a warm climate animal that needs to be warm. So that's another cost that we can factor into that pet ownership, are heat lamps. When you come into the Bartlett Nature Center, you'll notice all of our animals have heat lamps, and they usually will have a UVA bulb, a UVB bulb, a heat lamp. Some of them have heating pads underneath. So in their tanks, they have to have a cool zone and a warm zone. So you have to provide that. It's no different than you having heating in your house or a warm heated blanket. So we have to keep them warm for all of our cold-blooded friends because they have no way to regulate their temperature.
And I'll kind of bring him close now that he's still looking for food. So they do eat insects, but other things that they do eat is they will eat lettuce and different vegetables. So Pancake here is usually pretty chill in the hand. You can actually see some of the green from the lettuce he was eating earlier on the bottom. He's kind of a piggy eater. But another couple things you'll notice with Pancake is his eyes. So his eyes are primarily on the side of his heads. Unlike us who have our eyes on the front of our head, we are able to see really good in front of us. They don't see all that well in front of them, but they don't need to. They need to see behind them and on the side because they have predators that are coming after them. So you'll see if we had a bunch of people here, if we were to move him around, he'll actually kind of tilt his head back and forth to see everybody that's around and be able to tell where people are at or who people are. Also on the side of their head, right here is kind of where his ears are. He doesn't have exterior ears like we do. His ears are on the inside. So he doesn't have, those big protruding ears like we would have. He is not a type of lizard that drops their tail, unlike our other two. And then they do shed just like everything else. And they will shed, every couple weeks, depending on when they're growing. Every time they shed, they're basically growing still. So they'll shed continually throughout their life. It's kind of like us with our skin that flakes off. With dry skin, theirs comes off in big chunks and big pieces. And they are from Australia, if we didn't go over that already. So again, a dry, arid climate.
And that's Pancake. Any questions before we get to our last couple of critters and wrap it up?
So we had a question regarding the prairie. So someone asked what kind of animals can be found in the prairies around the nature center?
Oh, wow. Lots and great ones. So snakes, coyotes, fox, white-tailed deer. We do have several different kinds of snakes around here, brown snakes, fox snake, garter, a lot of birds, and we have a lot of waterfowl because we have little pockets of wetlands. So we do have like great blue herons, white egrets, and migratory birds that come in. So on occasion, we'll get the blue-winged teal or the swans. Sometimes pelicans will come in and rest for migration. Sandhill cranes would be one of my favorites that come in during migration. So we get a lot of similar animals. The thing that makes our prairie really, really unique is we're nestled in 501 acres of prairie. Just to the south of us, if anyone knows Stearns Road up here, or you can look on a map, is Pratt Wayne Woods Forest Preserve, which is the largest forest preserve in DuPage County. There's 3,400 acres of more land just to the south of us. So this property was originally purchased to extend that native habitat corridor. So we are a big extension of that. So there is a lot of open green space up here. So we can get a lot of biodiversity and area for wildlife to thrive and mate in and just be in.
Another question we had was, are there different species of bearded dragons, and is Pancake full size?
So Pancake is full size. As far as species, there are different species that you could see offhand. Also, same species can actually look different. So Cleo looks more spiky and is kind of a darker color than Pancake is. You can also have bearded dragons that are more of like a reddish color. It just kind of depends on their like how their DNA and their genes that creates them the way they are, just like they would create you with either your skin color or your hair color, eye color, things like that. So they will be different just depending on even with the same type of lizard.
Right. All these animals need care every single day. So whether it's misting in their habitat to keep their humidity high, feeding, cleaning out their cage. Like we said, everything eats and poops. So they will all need water. They all need to stay hydrated. So we always need to check on their drinking water. The snakes need bathing water in case they need to help with their shedding. So each one of these animals needs some sort of attention every single day. Okay, we ready? We're hearing you all say yes. All right, I'm going to give one to Mike. Feel like I'm sliding something secret here. All right, my two favorite animals in the Nature Center, and they're our two newest, and they're probably not even going to stick their heads out. Here you go. These are our two Blandings turtles. Mike has the male, and I have the female. They're about a little over a year old. So the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County has a wonderful ecologist by the name of Dan Thompson. I've known him for over 30 years. He is brilliant. And he is in charge of the captive rearing program for Blandings turtles. These guys are endangered, which means they are one step away from being extinct. So he's in charge of this program. And Blandings turtles, the sex of the turtle is determined by the temperature of the egg, which I just think is phenomenal in itself. That's scientific phenomenon for me. And so I always wanted a Blandings turtle at the Nature Center just to teach people and about conservation. So this male and this female are at the front of the Nature Center in their tank, basking and swimming every day and getting all the attention they could ever want. They eat fresh salmon and shrimp. No kidding. They live like a king and a queen. And that's what they do. They eat, sleep, sunbathe, and eat really, really great food. The female Blandings turtles would not normally be this yellow. She's considered a blonde gene mutation. So they don't really want them to mate. They're both runts of their litter. So, I mean, if it happens, it happens. But this is not one. Actually, you can see her just hiding perfectly in her shell. So let's give you that cute face. We don't usually hold them like this. They're usually, you know, free swimming in their tanks. She is normally every day sitting on top of him, stretching her neck out, getting sun. So she actually, or absolutely, is the boss of the tank, we think. But they get along. And so these are little guys. And for size comparison, this is a computer mouse. So I don't know if that does it for you. They're pretty tiny. They're maybe, I don't even have a good.
A silver dollar, probably.
Silver dollar, maybe. Yeah, if you guys recall what a silver dollar is. But they're pretty cool. They're pretty cool animals. We do have a population of Blandings turtles up here at the state park that are monitored by Mr. Thompson at the Forest Preserve. There's a nice little side view of her. She's considering bringing her head out, and you can see her little foot right there in the corner.
Okay, we have a few questions regarding the turtles. So the first one is, what kind of turtles are in the prairie?
Lots of different kinds of turtles can be in the prairie. So in our wetlands, we would have like red-eared sliders, painted, kind of more your traditional. They could be musk turtles. Very rarely a box turtle, but more of your soft, oh my gosh, soft-shelled turtle, snapping turtles. Those are going to be your kind of typical ones. These are going to be the more rare, but these are the ones that we monitor for and that they look for.
Okay, so the next question was, how does Stearns Road impact the wildlife? Do the animals try crossing from one side to the other, or is it an isolated population?
They absolutely try and cross the road from one side to the other. Oddly enough, I have not seen too many accidents up here. Now, is that the part of the animal or the people? I'm going to give credit to the people. So the people of Bartlett and the surrounding communities absolutely understand where they live and the community that they live in. So I've seen nothing but very caring people up here. So they're very mindful of where they're at and that they're by a forest preserve or that they're by a state park. So I really do believe that the residents in this community have the best interest for the animals around here, because I have not seen, you know, like sometimes if you're driving, I don't know, on a college visit or going to a lake house or something like that, you'll see a lot of unfortunate things on the side of the road. You don't see that up here. So I really give credit to the community members up here for being proactive. Unfortunately, maybe the animals are just as smart too, but I really think it's the community members.
So the next question is, what are the Blanding turtles predators and are they endangered?
Are the Blandings turtles endangered? Yes, they're very endangered. Sorry, I just scared her. They are most vulnerable at this age. Did you guys all just see her go whoop? They're a good snack at this size. So the toughest part is when a Blandings turtle has the hatchlings. They're nice and soft still. So as soon as they're in a body of water, so many animals, birds, other turtles, fish, anything, raccoons, anything can just gobble them up. It's just like having a chicken nugget. It's just so they're so tiny and small. And if there's going to be a lot of hatchlings in one area, it's just easy pickings. So they are endangered. They're trying to save their population. Oh, now she's coming out and she thinks she's going to crawl and swim and do everything. So they're trying to save them. Predators can be all of those animals because they're just, right now her shell's getting a little bit harder. And the bottom of her shell is kind of cool too. It has kind of a neat pattern. But they're easy to eat. Sounds silly, but animals find a way. You know, like when you're hungry at home and you're kind of going through your house and you're like, Mom and Dad, I have nothing to eat. You find something. You can find anything to eat. You know, you can mix just about anything to make it work. Well, animals can do the same.
So this is the last question we have, and is, how do you guys receive new species at the Nature Center?
How do we receive new species? We don't. That's important. And we can put these guys away too. And you're going to notice that we are going to take a moment and wipe our hands because, first of all those animals that we just touched, you probably didn't see this. We were cleaning in between because they all carry salmonella. So that's another important thing to think of before you go buy anything. New species. So that's something that we are instituting right now. We're writing some guidelines on how to do this so that we're just not receiving anything. Animals cost money. And so since we have to be very responsible with our money and our time, we're trying to be very mindful. We have 22 different species of animals up here at the Nature Center. So we do get a lot of phone calls. You know, will you take this? Will you take this? And sometimes we have to say no. Most of the time we do have to say no. Sometimes we'll call another nature center, whether that's in Naperville, Downers Grove, Oak Brook, to some of our partners. Maybe they want something, maybe they need something. But the moral of the story here is, and the reason that we really wanted to do, can you move this back a little? Great. The reason we really wanted to do this session for U46, besides you guys being great partners, is to let you know you don't have to buy things, right? You don't have to run to the pet store and you don't have to spend money, because the good news is you have this great property right in your backyard and we have an opportunity of a lifetime. So here comes our shameless plug. You can volunteer at the Nature Center, and it doesn't have to be all the time. And we could set something up, but you can help us care for these animals and you can learn all about them. So you don't have to buy rats and put them in your freezer at home. You don't have to get misting machines and hygrometers and all this kind of stuff. You can be an animal care volunteer with us and help us do what we just did. And if you want to learn how to do an animal encounter, kind of like what we just did, if you want to learn more about the animals and the species, write diet cards with us and take care of them and get up close and personal with these animals, then you really don't need to purchase them. So that's really what we advocate for people is be careful. You know, when you go down to Florida on spring break, they're going to have all the cute little hermit crabs in a cute little container. And then they're going to have yellow-bellied cooters, which is a turtle. They're going to have everything to buy. But just remember that the blue shoes perspective, right? Everybody that's selling something is just trying to make money. They don't know or care what you're going to do with that animal later. They just want your money right then. You have to be mindful of the science, and you have to be mindful of what's going to happen to this turtle in 10 years, in 2 years when you go to college. That turtle is going to be around for the next 40 years. So it's going to outlive a lot of things and a lot of people. Or when you all go off to college and your parents are stuck with these lizards and snakes and turtles, they probably don't want them, to be honest. And they probably don't want to go buy rats and mice and crickets and things like that. So you could have that experience if you're really into snakes and reptiles and things like that. Come see us. Come learn from us. We'll teach you what we know. We'll teach our science background, how we got here. We will give you everything that you want, everything that you need to know. So those opportunities are around for youngsters and for families to volunteer and get out in nature and out in conservation agencies. Does that help answer the question?
Thank you so much, Deborah and Mike. We hope to see you next year, and thank you for this awesome presentation.
Yeah,
Very, very welcome. Thank you guys for hosting.
and thank you all to the participants as well. Thank you for tuning in. We have the next presentation is from Owen Edwards, and he'll be talking about what makes a frog rare. So if you guys want to tune into that as well. Thank you again. We really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.